sort of terrible story of what happened to Elena, but when you begin research for the book, at one point you're going through photographs that were taken by a Red Cross inspector who visited Friedrichstadt and Terezin, this show camp that the Nazis had created to create a false illusion of the concentration camps. And as you're going through these photographs, unexpectedly you find a photograph. Tell us about the picture that you discovered.
Well, Dasha had some pictures of Milena, what she looked like in a particular dress. And
5 for the 5th age.
And all of a sudden there's this little girl that looks the same that has.
They even wear it in the clothes symbolism.
She was very much there.
Checkerboard floor.
So she is kind of a theme through it. And I have to say, in terms of lessons learned, what happened was that the Red Cross was trying to prove, or the Germans were trying to prove to the Red Cross that this was a nice place. So what they did was construct a whole artificial place, and I describe this at some length in terms of the group that went in there to inspect. And part of what happened was that the people that were supposed to go were not the original group that were well trained. These people went there and kind of whitewashed the whole operation. And there were pictures of children playing and eating and various things. And it's a lesson today when we have these various inspection teams that go out, human rights teams, to see what is going on or what is happening in Iran with the nuclear things, is that people that go, that are selected to
what is on her eye?
Know what to look
a witch wart?
That the world counts on them to tell the truth. And the Terezin trip was one
and
of
look at her eyes, how they look weird from the side.
Of how public propaganda can in fact taint everything when somebody is not prepared to do the job and they got fooled by the fact that there actually were sinks.
She won't even look straight forward. They have her only turn it to the side.
Throughout the book, you talk about these choices, a huge range of the incredibly impossible or difficult choices faced by major state figures like Eisenhower, whether to rescue the Czechoslovakian uprising in Prague,
serious bald spots.
Whether America or the Brits should have been involved in Czechoslovakia before the war. Big state decisions down to these very intimate human decisions like the ones that affected the life of Melina. You also talk about the struggle to attribute responsibility for these things, and as Dasha ends up blaming her parents for this terrible thing, but you make the point that the responsibility for decisions like those lies not.
Of course, they have to have some woman's legs right here in the background. Look at this.
Decision to be made.
So sexist.
You then later in your career become
right here's a checkerboard floor.
On the importance of
it's like skulls on the floor.
In terms of sorting out the aftermath of genocide and terrible events. But talk for a moment
checkerboard,
about
black
how
and white, or whatever they call it, Masonic.
Influence the way that you approach the sorting out of responsibility for nations.
Well, one of the choice stories that I think is worth repeating because
they won't even give a close-up on her face.
What happened was Czechoslovakia,
and she always has to turn to the side, notice? She will not show a front angle. She never looks at the camera. Now, what person interviews like this has got to be old school, because anyone knows in TV that they have a red dot on the camera and they tell you where to look. And she will never look at the camera for some reason.
Recognized as a government in exile, which was difficult because in order to do that, the Brits would have to renounce Munich, which they didn't want to do. But the Czechs and President Beneš, who had been the president, was there with the government. My father was with the government in exile there.
She won't look straight forward once. Look at her. She barely looked, because probably they cued her.
But also to prove themselves to the British.
She's hiding the wart on her face, and she's hiding her eye movement. She will hardly look forward.
With the British, and what happened is they
what is Marilyn Albright hiding?
They then, it's actually an interesting story. They then assassinate.
We don't know, because she won't even look straight forward.
Decides to
look at that chin.
Jews, and as it turns out, I find out that's when they rounded up my grandmother. But they also destroyed an entire town, Lidice. They leveled it completely. And so, historically, the question is, was it worth assassinating
Usually when
this
people
man
have throats like that, they lie a lot.
It's a close call. I mean, this was a number 3 Nazi. As a result of it, the British recognized the value and recognized the government. So there were an endless number of trade-offs, but a very, very difficult aspect of it.
And ultimately, I think you're right that you thought, as difficult as it was the correct decision.
It's probably the correct. I mean, this was a, it was a the number 3 Nazi. Well, trade-offs, but a very.
Okay, let's see what kind of ring she's wearing here. Black and white Masonic rings.
Very, very difficult number of trade-offs, but a very, very difficult aspect of it.
And ultimately, I think you're right that you thought, as difficult as it was.
This is her personal story of remembrance in war. She won't even hold her head straight. She's always got a tilt. Look at this woman. I'm sorry to say, but she looks like a witch. And she's even got the witch sign on her, under her eye. Boy, oh boy. Those teeth even look weird, like gums.
As it turns out, I find out that's when they rounded up my grandmother. But they also destroyed an entire town, Lidice. They leveled it completely. And so, historically, the question is, was it worth assassinating this man and losing thousands of people in this town?
You see her forehead?
It's a close call. I mean, this was a number 3 Nazi. As a result of it, the British recognized the value and recognized the government. So there were an endless number of trade-offs, but a very, very difficult aspect of it.
And ultimately, I think you're right that you thought, as difficult as it was the correct decision.
It's probably the correct. I mean, this was a, it was a the number 3 Nazi, and the only assassination of a Nazi all during the war. But it's very hard. So the issue, I mean,
it was hard to assassinate a Nazi
how
for
much,
her.
obviously, my background affected.
I guess, maybe you had a little bit of his belief, so it made it hard for you.
Found out you were Jewish. Well, the Bosnia thing was all before I knew that I was Jewish. What I did know was what had happened during World War II and what the responsibilities of decision makers is in terms of trying to make a difference. So one of the things that I grew up with, I'm sure many people here, were the Nuremberg trials, which was punishing those who had done the whole Nazi propaganda disaster.
Did you guys get that from the Nazi war too?
So the interesting part was we get to Bosnia issue. David Sheffer, who
when you guys pillaged all the Jews and took the money with Hitler, or you guys won't reveal that, will you?
War Crimes Tribunal. It was the first time that kind of thing had happened since Nuremberg. And in fact, the purpose of it was
because they keep all that stuff secret. How they took those documents and all those artwork.
One of the things that I
and
learned as a grown-up and also
they
as a
sit
public
in museums
was
now.
not all
Most of
Germans
them
were responsible for what Hitler did.
Oh, government
Somebody
property.
Asked me, how can I be friends with Germans? The bottom line is one of my best friends is Joschka Fischer, who was the foreign minister of Germany, who was completely against what he grew up in counter-authority as a result of that. So you can't blame a whole country. You can't blame all the people. So here the issue was you can't blame all Serbs for the fact that Milosevic and Mladic
Of course, they always have a black girl with the
that
same
did these
little
things.
mark
So
in the back with the
War Crime
witch
Tribunal
mark.
is
Look at
very
her.
important
Right
because
by
it
her
assigns
nose.
removes collective
Is she
guilt
top
and assigns
witch?
individual guilt. And of the various votes I took, that is one I'm proudest of. And
just like
I've spent a lot
Marilyn,
of
look,
time
she
in
got
The
a
Hague
dot on her
looking at how
face
the War
too.
Crimes Tribunals work.
They know that's a witch
Not
mark.
only that one, but the one for Rwanda, and then watching how they have been the basis of the International Criminal Court. It'd be interesting for you to have David here, because David clearly was the brains behind this operation, and
Look
then
at these
he
women.
also
All probably
was our negotiator on the
witches.
International Criminal Court, and how disappointed he was when the United States did
Probably
not
how they
join
got
him.
to sit back there too.
It's an
Not one
interesting
black
aspect in
or
terms of
minority is
a
even
tool that
permitted.
could be used,
Not even, are these
trying to
Germans? Not
resolve
even a
individual
German probably.
And also interesting that in the
Just
book,
lily
you write
white
about your mother felt very
girls,
differently
all
about,
gathered around
about
Marilyn
how to
Albright.
view Germans after the war.
Still keeping it white, aren't you, Marilyn? Forget those nigger girls.
She did say that she was
After all, you fought for discrimination and everything, but it wasn't for the blacks.
She really was continually under.
Madam Secretary, it's Fred Hitz, and
Hey, how are you?
nice to see you.
Well, we did stuff together.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
That's
And
the
Yeah,
spot.
he's the one, he keeps quiet, that press. He's the one in the trained press.
Your advice to the
Media
current
whore.
administration and to Senator Kerry, your successor, of how to get off this horrible confrontation between the parties on Capitol Hill where nothing's getting done. Is there
That's
any
the way they
secret that
make
hasn't
it.
been, tried
So they
or
get a lot of
revealed? It just seems
pushing
to
and
me
shoveling
even after an
paperwork
election, which the
around while
president
you
won
paying them.
substantially in the popular vote, we're back to the same old slugging it out and not talking with one another.
So this is a man who did congressional relations. So, but I don't know the answer, because I think partially there is some reason those who are being obstructionist are getting something out of it. And therefore, I think an awful lot depends on all of us who are the voters and the public, that we don't want to put up with this anymore. I have to say that the confirmation hearing of Senator Hagel was one of the most disturbing things that I've seen in a very long time.
But you never spoke up or did
A
anything.
couple of times, I know what it's like to be there. It's not an easy set of hearings. I have to say what happened to me when I was UN ambassador, being confirmed for that. What happened was there was a vote, and they all left me with Senator Lugar, who was very friendly but also very smart, and he asked me so many questions about everything, and I thought, this is like my PhD orals exam. And so
Of course, you could only make it there because you're lily white.
Than being hectored and
While you guys kept
yelled
me
at
down, and now I can't even get my PhD.
And so partially, I think there's some kind of benefit that those people that did that must feel.
Yeah, the
So
benefit
some of it
goes
has
to
do
white
with what is
America.
going on in terms of our political system at this moment, and the splits that are happening, and I wish there were some other way.
Now our eyes look
because I think
different.
that the people in an administration, I think, any administration, want desperately to be able to get things done. And so I'm surprised that the others don't. But I don't know what the answer is. I think the only answer that I can think of is all of us, who simply will say, we are not going to listen to this anymore. We're not going to put up with it. It doesn't take me very long to get around to blaming the media. But I do think there's also a payoff for various channels that just kind of get more ratings or something out of
See that bolt coming out her head?
What they're saying, and that they're pointing up the fight.
It's like a
I
knot.
said something on purpose a little while ago. I do think elections are essential,
Maybe
but they are not
Botox
the
gone
only
wrong.
thing in our system. And the fact that, well, President Obama said this the other day when he was having the interview with Secretary Clinton. He'd only been in the second term 4 days, and people are already talking about
I don't think I can look much more at her face. This is information you need. Reporting all one word with a U, and I guess my camera's acting up again.
Governance in Egypt. We should be